everyone. Thank you for joining for our second webinar for Compost Awareness Week. Today we're talking about composting and looking at it not for landfill, but composting for the environment. What are the environmental benefits of composting at a societal level, kind of as a municipality or a commercial scale? And we're very lucky to have Haley with us from Food Loops, who's going to talk about their business model and how they can recover food waste from restaurants and campuses and other commercial business centers. And we also have Faebyan Shields from the City of Fayetteville, who's going to talk to us about their composting program with the city. This is very exciting because the two of them have some expertise that complement what we heard in our first webinar, where we learned a little bit more about home composting and how to use the compost in our gardens. These two are going to tell us about how we can generate the compost by recapturing food waste that would otherwise have made its way to landfill. So thank you all for joining, and let's get started. And our first speaker is Faebyan Shields from the City of Fayetteville, the environmental educator for the city. And we're going to hear about the City of Fayetteville's composting program.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. We are super excited to talk about what the City of Fayetteville does for food waste composting and diversion. Like we said earlier, if y'all didn't hear, my last name has changed, so it's Faebyan Shields now. But if you see Faebyan Whittle around town, that's me as well. I'm one of the environmental educators for the city. And we'll start real quick by talking about what food waste is. Which most of us probably already know, but if you're curious, it pretty much has to do with anything that you have previously consumed, thought you might consume, or decided you definitely didn't want to consume, whether it was good food or not. That includes wasted food from grocery stores, fields that don't get used whenever people are growing food, and events. If you have a big event and you don't, use all of that food. So that kind of categorizes pretty much all the things that could go into the compost. There's an organization, ReFed, that estimates about 4 million tons of surplus food is generated by retail stores. And in 2023, about 35% of that was landfilled, which is a huge number. That's over a third of food that could have gone to people, animals, donated. There's a lot of food insecurity in America. So one of the things that the City of Fayetteville likes to do is talk about opportunities to prevent the food waste before it starts. And if y'all haven't seen it before, oops, went too far. The EPA came out with a wasted food scale in 2023 and basically lets you know, like, hey, before you actually compost the food, which you'll see is fourth down the row, you'll think about your purchasing practices. So you'll look in your fridge first before you go grocery shopping. Go through your pantry, see what you've already got. Try not to go to the grocery store hungry, because that often creates those issues where we buy things that we may have already had and didn't realize, or things that we probably didn't really want to eat, but we're so hungry they looked good at the time. So one of the things to help with wasted food, though, if you don't eat all of your food, is to donate it. There is a Good Samaritan Act that says that you can't be sued or held liable if in good faith you donate food that is still edible. So maybe you have a big event, a big family get together. It can be a range of size. And you can coordinate with food recovery organizations or food insecurity groups to actually get that food donated so that other humans can enjoy it. If you can't get to other humans, then somebody always knows a family with chickens or a farmer, and all that food can go to the farm. Excuse me. And that way you can keep that food from getting, again, landfilled. Composting is fourth. That's what we do here. And we have a lot of opportunities in Fayetteville. We had a waste audit done last year, and we found out that 15% of the single family waste stream was food waste. So we're already doing a lot with single families. We've got drop-offs in multifamilies, commercial accounts as well. But you'll see there's a big opportunity there for more waste to get diverted from the landfill. We have a goal of trying to divert all of 40% of all waste from the landfill. So we've got some challenges ahead, but we're up 20%, so we're halfway there. and we'll just keep moving forward. Our program started in 2016. This is me a couple of years ago in front of our adorable little food waste education trailer. That's what started this party. We're the only city-run municipality composting facility in the state, which is kind of cool and kind of not cool. I wish there were more opportunities out there for other cities. It is a little tricky getting permitting though, so this definitely was a work of love and labor to get this facility started. It all started with the buckets. So we have a bucket program that a USDA grant funded for tons of buckets. I think we've given over 900 buckets over the whole course of the program, and not just to Fayetteville residents, because it just started out with just Fayetteville residents and then moved into, if someone needs a bucket to collect, you don't have to live in the city. You can live in one of the other cities. You can work in Fayetteville and come from another city and drop off your food waste for totally free. We have 5 drop-offs. So we have awesome community partners that have shared their time and space. So we can have community drop-offs all around the city. We also have our Marion Orton North Street drop-off location, and also the Happy Hollow one right here by my office. And last year let's see, what was it? I think I had that on the previous slide here where I put my notes. No, it's on the other one. The parks one, that's what I was trying to share. We do have a new program starting soon for some new drop-off areas. And so if you watch our social media, you'll see those go live soon. And that's what I was trying to find, a metric here. For 2024, we collected 1,200 tons, over 1,200 tons at our drop-offs and our commercial accounts, which is quite a lot. And so we were excited to do more. We now have a pilot with Ozark Compost and Swap. So if you haven't heard of that already, there's a free trial going on. So you can go reach out to them and they can give you a free month to see if you can become a composter. There is the issue with the buckets that some people had with their drop-offs because they didn't have the time or the accessibility to get them dropped off. And so this is a doorstep program. They basically give you a bucket, fill up with your food waste. They come back with a clean bucket, drop it off and take your food waste and bring it to us. And so far they diverted over 7 tons, which is about 15,000 pounds. And that's only about 15 weeks. So while the pool of people has been small, only about 120 participants so far, the impact has been grand. So we're really excited to figure out what we can do in the future to expand this to the whole city. And one of the cool things that people can do is just share the program. So even if you already are a participant, or maybe you tried it out, but it wasn't your thing, just sharing with other folks that food waste being diverted from the landfill is important. Is actually just important as part of this mission. Our facility is pretty cool. It's right behind me. We use modified static aerobic processing. And you'll see this cool machinery down at the bottom there. That's our row turner. And we take everything in our program besides raw meat and giant vats of oil. So everything else is pretty much fair game. We take BPI certified compostable plastics, which is one of those things that not every facility in the country can take. So we're excited we can provide that so people can have low or zero waste events. We have a cool process too with our composting where we actually do it kind of in a reverse method. So most people are familiar with compost happening from the inside and going outward. We use Harvest Quest as the company that we get a specialized inoculant with bacteria and fungus in it. And we put that into our windrows. And when we aerate it, it actually creates an outside-in effect. So composting starts from the outside, works its way in, and our piles can get done in about 3 months. And here's a cool video to share.
Fayetteville, Arkansas is aiming to reach 40% waste diversion by 2027. This means that the city wants to reduce landfill waste by diverting 40% of that waste to alternate methods of disposal. Food waste alone comprises 18% of Fayetteville's total landfill waste. The food waste that goes into landfills decomposes without oxygen, which creates methane, a greenhouse gas that is 25 times more potent in global warming than carbon dioxide. But food waste can be used to create compost, which grows strong, healthy plants that absorb carbon from the atmosphere. So, what exactly is compost? Well, compost is a chemical-free, natural fertilizer that contains essential macronutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and trace minerals, which are extremely healthy for plants. Did you know that Fayetteville has food waste drop-off locations where food waste is collected and then turned into compost back at our facility? Fayetteville citizens can then buy this compost and use it to boost their gardens, their lawns, and potted plants. This is because compost improves the soil's water retention, texture, pH, and overall health. Now let's take a peek behind the scenes to see how we turn food waste into usable and beneficial compost. First, the food waste is collected from all of the food waste drop-off locations and commercial routes, such as restaurants and schools. Then, it is brought to our compost facility, where it is placed onto a pre-made mixture of 50% ground yard waste and 50% wood chips. This pre-made mixture not only absorbs any excess liquids, but also provides a foundation of microbes during the decomposition process that helps to break the pile down. This pile is referred to as a compost windrow, which is turned several times with our specialized row turner to ensure that the food waste and pre-made mixture is evenly mixed. Next, we add an inoculant, which is a special blend of bacteria and fungi to the windrow pile. This blend works like yeast when making bread, except instead of yeast feeding on sugar, it's a mixture of bacteria and fungus feeding on food waste. Each tablespoon contains around 2.6 billion microbacteria and fungi that repopulate and constantly move through the windrow pile from the outside in. This constant movement pulls air toward the center of the pile that rises out of the top as steam, creating what is known as the chimney effect. Finally, a 6-inch cap of mix is added to the entire outside of the pile. This cap works as a biofilter, an odor control technique that also allows the food waste to reach and maintain high temperatures throughout the pile. The pile then sits for 30 days before being turned again. The microbial activity within the windrow pile creates large amounts of heat that reaches up to 160 degrees. We monitor the temperature daily at different depths and locations to ensure the pile stays warm enough to cook out the evil pathogens, leading to a safe product for your plants. A minimum temperature of 131 degrees Fahrenheit is needed to cook out those pathogens. We take samples from these piles and then send them to a lab to be tested for quality. The food waste is decomposed in the first 30 days, but it takes about 3 months for everything in the windrow pile to be fully decomposed. At the end of the 3-month period, the compost is then sifted through our screener to remove any large debris and create a finer compost. Lastly, it goes through a final 2-week curing period before it's ready. The compost can now be purchased to grow healthy, more environmentally friendly gardens, yards, and potted plants, all of which absorb more carbon from the atmosphere. Composting is just one method of reusing our waste and keeping it out of our landfills. If you are interested about other methods or just want to learn more about our food waste drop-off locations, please feel free to ask us. Thank you for watching this video about our food waste composting program. And remember, waste not, use less.
Not to get too far off of the subject of composting, but many people are familiar that our landfill is, pretty much at capacity. and whatever we can do to mitigate, the shortened lifespan of this locale is important. Nobody wants to live next to a landfill, and nobody really wants to start a new landfill. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that in the that was a great idea. So yeah, y'all can go to that YouTube video that's in the comments there and enjoy that on your own leisure. I think one of the things that's important to note about the landfill is that we do have a lot of environmental protections in place in this landfill that keep it a little bit more environmentally friendly than maybe some others in the country. But once it is full, we will be putting our waste onto other humans, other people that are just like us that don't want a landfill built next to them. The other options are also not so great with, incineration. Not that there's some bigger conversations about waste to energy, but food waste, instead of incinerating it, like some people do around the world, can be created into an amendment that grows food for your neighbors, grows food for your community. A lot of people at the farmers market, a lot of people in their local community use this for gardening, use it to grow food. So creating that stable, strong food system is also really important to the city of Fayetteville, ensuring that instead of, burying this stuff in a hole, which it won't decompose, which most people are probably familiar with that, we are able to strengthen our soil system and our food systems at the same time, especially when you're thinking about the donation side of things. So a lot of people see food and they immediately think, oh, okay, I'm done eating it, it's bad. But there's all these creative ways to make it into other foods, or again, with that feeding your neighbors idea, because a lot of people in Arkansas are food insecure. So any way that we could help our neighbors and help the landfill as well, not get full too soon, I think is a great way of being. So if anybody has any questions, I am available.
Yeah, I wanted to
On
make
the
sure. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to make sure that our users understood that the Q&A is available, and I do have one question. Approximately how many pounds or tons of compost does Fayetteville give away or distribute each year? Or is that something you're aware of?
Oh yes, so we have a cool page. We have our transparency page, so I can actually see what Brian has updated most recently. One unique thing that the city of Fayetteville also does is we have full transparency of where everything goes material wise that we divert from the landfill. So you can go to our webpage, and in transparency, you can actually see our in-market collections. For the first quarter, we don't have our numbers up just yet. I know Brian was working on those, so we should see those shortly. But for collections, like I said earlier, we had the 1,218 tons that was collected. Um, and then for compost, we sold 3,377 tons of compost. So that is a lot of farms and gardens and really happy flowers that are out
Yeah.
there.
And we don't even get special treatment at the university. We get in line just like everyone else. We're limited to one scoop.
Yes, it is gold. And that's, part of the story again is sharing this story of, composting doesn't happen unless we have the food waste to make it happen. So anything that you can't eat, anything you can't share with a friend, bring to our facility, find, an opportunity that works for your family, whether it be signing up for a residential, doorstep service, or, finding your routing to make it to one of our drop-offs. We're excited about the new drop-offs that are going to go live here probably the next month or so, so we can provide more accessibility to people in different parts of the city, because we really want to help our residents, facilitate their own best ways of being in their households, and not every thing is going to work for everybody. So having multiple options for people is really important. But yeah, I really do recommend everybody get on that transparency page, because it's kind of cool to see where all our materials go, not just the
I did not.
composting.
I put that in the chat if anyone's able to access that, just because.
You're
Uh,
awesome, Matt. Thank you.
another question we have is, what about red meat or
Mhm.
not red meat, raw meat?
Mhm.
If that can't make it to the compost stream, what's the best way to deal with raw meats?
So if it is completely rotten, I that's a hard one to come up with, because we don't want it to go to the landfill, but cooking rotten meat is probably gross. So trying to navigate not having too much rotten meat is important. But I will say, even if it's been in the freezer for 6 months and it feels like it's just not going to be great to eat, you can cook it up and then make
Okay.
your choices there. I will share a fun little tidbit. I have 4 dogs, and I try to keep on a super healthy diet and not feed them too many table scraps necessarily. But with the healthier scraps that I have, and I'm a vegetarian, but my son and partner eat meat. If I do have red meat around that we didn't get to cook, I had some in the freezer that was like, old. And so I just thawed it out, cooked it up really well, and then made it into a dog treat with some,
Oh.
ground up carrots and things like that. So there are ways to, take extra steps to make sure the stuff doesn't get into the landfill, which is definitely, a cumbersome on people's time every once in a while. But it can be a fun activity to do as well, especially if you have kids and you can show them a new way of being, instead of just throwing something away and being done with it, you take a few extra steps to create something new and give your puppy some fun treats.
Well, and I appreciate that comment because as you said, you showed the kind of that U-shaped food waste diagram, right? And upstream of composting was livestock. So
Mhm.
getting it to your domesticated animals would be actually preferable.
Yeah.
And that is something one of our partners in this event or in this week was Fossil Cove, and they actually donated some of their spent grain that they use for brewing for us to compost so we could demonstrate, look, you can actually take this byproduct of an industry and use it to generate compost instead of just discarding it. But they actually already have farming partners and they feed it to
Mm,
livestock. So they actually were already doing the more sustainable practice. So good for them.
that's awesome.
We still appreciate them, being willing to share with us. But they actually told us that they're like they already have growers or farmers who feed it to their livestock. So they're doing the right
That's
thing.
that's beautiful. Yeah.
I don't see any additional questions at this time, but I really do appreciate it. I guess because they weren't able to view the scoop video, I apologize for that. Could you talk a little bit about are you familiar with are you able to describe the construction of the compost facility and because it doesn't look like a landfill to me. It looked like
Mhm.
a
It
um
looks like a giant backyard compost a bit actually, without the
mhm.
pallets. We have, just a big concrete pad where we have windrows. So we start in little chunks of, sections where we put down the ground mulch and yard waste first. And that captures any of the liquids. We are very fortunate in Arkansas that the humidity is pretty nice, so we don't actually ever have to add any water to our rows to keep them moist. But once we put that food waste onto that first layer, and we add the inoculant, we add the right ratio of additional yard waste compost on top, and then we cap it with mulch. And we just continue to build these little chimney rows out, super long. I think they're like 20 feet long. I'd have to check with Brian on the length on that. And then we let them sit there for about 3 months. We actually have temperature probes now that are connected to the interwebs instead of manual testing. The video does, it's from 2021, so it does show the manual probes being put into the piles because we ensure the piles are getting up to 131 degrees, so that kills any pathogens. And then we don't have to do that now because we have automatic probes put in there that send my boss directly all the information of everything that's going on out there. So it makes it a little less of a heavy lift on our crew. But after 3 months, there's samples taken, they're sent off to a lab to make sure there are no pathogens. We want to see what the content of the nitrogen, phosphorus, everything that's in there. And then we let it cure for about a month because fresh compost is quite fresh compost. So it does need a little bit of extra aeration and time to kind of get everything settled because it was a highly active environment for that 3 month period. And then once it's good to go, it is pretty much gone because everybody gets to buy it by the truckload. And, with tax, it's just a little over $40 for 2.5 cubic yards. So anybody can visualize 2.5 cubic yards right off the bat. Awesome. If you can't, it's about a truckload's worth that's like mounded over. So plenty to share. Again, if you have neighbors or friends that do things like this, they could definitely half it with you. But it goes really fast. We won't have any again till about the end of May, beginning of June. But the more people that bring us their food waste, the more compost we can make. So, yeah.
Okay. And then the one last question I had about that surface, that big paved surface, can you communicate the reason that you would do that as opposed to directly onto the soil?
Yeah, I think that really does help mitigate any of the issues that we might have with runoff. We do have a retention pond, and the White River is right behind us. So we are guided by state, legislation that makes sure that nothing gross is going into the river, but that concrete pad allows us to control that environmental measure a little bit better. Not that people can't do it that way, but the concrete actually does heat up as well. So that's kind of a nice
Oh,
side factor to kind of keep insulation. Not that the earth doesn't get warm as well, but you've got those environmental protections to keep leachate or any runoff from going that, it will go to the retention pond first, of course. But we
well, no, and I
use a
appreciate
lot of
that.
concrete, but it is important. Yeah.
Well, it's something that I think some people were surprised by that when the NRCS support for installing compost um, piles at your home. If you're asking to do that, they have a request for a non-permeable surface, and it's because
Mhm.
of water quality issues. And so,
It is. You're right. Yes.
mature compost is not an environmental hazard, and yet when you're adding materials to this, if you have manure-based products, y'all
Hmm.
are very conscientious of the effects that could have on the environment. And so,
Yeah.
it's a striking thing to see. Like, what's this big paved surface? What is that? But
It
it's
is.
basically a big
Yeah,
bowl to keep protecting the watershed. So,
it's
uh,
true. Yes,
greatly appreciate
absolutely.
that. Well, if more questions come up, Fabian, I appreciate if you'd be
Yeah.
able to stay on. If you need to go, that's
I'll
okay.
be here. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be involved. So thank you.
All right. And then I guess I'll ask Haley, if you don't mind, would you get started up and share your screen if possible? And would you mind introducing yourself as well, just so that
Of
people know?
course, yeah. My name's Haley, and I graduated from the Environmental Soil and Water Science program in 22 at the U of A. And for the last 2 years, I have worked with Food Loops. I've worked with them for several doing contract work before I was a part of their full-time team, but I am the project integrator and I oversee all of the compost sales. I'm super busy with that during this time of the year, and it's my favorite part about my job. So I'm very lucky that I get to do that. I know that this is a statewide seminar, but I am going to kind of focus on how in Northwest Arkansas, with the help of City of Fayetteville and with Richard Ems, who hauls food waste for us, we're able to create a circular economy and we're able to get food waste to the commercial facility in Fayetteville. And throughout these slides, there are QR codes that if you guys want more information, they will directly take you to our web pages. We help our partners reach 90% diversion. We're able to support our sustainability initiatives by making compostable items available in Northwest Arkansas. We collect accumulated waste from restaurants, from office buildings, and from events. And then we sort and transport that waste for our clients. And like I said, with the help of Richard Ems, who owns Food Recycling Solutions, and with help from the City of Fayetteville, they accept all of what we accumulate and what Richard is able to haul over to their facility. So there are four main revenue streams that, again, just help us support this idea of a circular economy. And I'm going to kind of go into what each one is and how we're able to collect food waste from. There's really four. The compost, we sell compost, and that is a revenue stream. But in addition to campus hospitality and zero waste, we also have a residential program that really mimics what Fayetteville has in place. Fayetteville does a really good job at supplying the city of Fayetteville with drop-off locations. So we try to step in and help cities that surround Fayetteville with that same opportunity and accessibility. So we have our hospitality clients, and anyone that purchases compostables from us, we consider a part of our hospitality customers. A lot of times, if they're going to take that step, we sell BPI certified compostables, which, like Fabian said, are the type that they would like for us to use if we are taking those to their facility. So a lot of times, if restaurants are going to opt to purchase those types of alternative plastics and their alternatives to styrofoam, then they will opt to do food waste recycling on the back end. We help host zero waste events, which that's a picture of me at Pride on the left side of the screen, and then on the left or on the right side, that's us at Chefs in the Garden. And at that event in particular, I think it was nearly 2 tons that we were able to sort and recover, and all of that got sent directly to the City of Fayetteville. We help with an event that happens later on in September, which is LPGA. That's one of the biggest events that we do every year. We, in 2022, were able to recover 6.6 tons of food waste, and we helped achieve a 70% diversion with all the materials that were taken in to support that event. We were able to divert 70% of what ended up getting accumulated. And then in 23, we bumped that diversion rate to 84%, and we were able to recover 9.2 tons of food waste. And so, in addition to that, we do help some venues throughout Northwest Arkansas. We, in 23, helped the Ledger in downtown Bentonville achieve zero waste practices. They have since taken on their own sustainability initiatives and are able to divert food waste with the help of Richard. Richard picks up from them weekly, and he had told me that over the last 3 years, they have diverted 81 tons of food waste, which is spectacular. And with the help of Richard, we are able to pick up food waste from venues in Bentonville and get it to where it needs to go in Fayetteville. And without him, we would not be able to do that. We don't haul our own food waste. So we also have what we consider our campus customers. We work with some of the offices that are listed here. A lot of them are in Bentonville because of Walmart's presence, and food waste, like it is, recycling food waste is accessible in Fayetteville. It's just not as prevalent in some of the other cities. So we really try to step in and help make that a possibility. We service the Sam's home office. We're in their cafeterias, so we sell all of our compostables to Sam's. And our biggest campus customer we service both of the Tyson locations in Springdale. So they purchase compostables from us and have those in their cafeteria as well. So this is my favorite part. We do generate money from selling compost, and we used to partner more closely with the City of Fayetteville, but as Fabian had mentioned, there is not enough compost to fulfill the need in Northwest Arkansas, so we do outsource for our product, and we work with a company that provides us with a very high quality product. It is food waste compost. In this facility, they operate out of Little Rock. They accept depackaged and deshelved food waste. So from grocery stores, they'll buy the semi truckload, will accept the inputs for a price, like a tipping price. And then they send all of that food through a depackager, and using centripetal force, they are able to screen out most of the plastic packaging that comes off of that depackaged food. A lot of times, whenever people come and pick up compost, because we also sell by the cubic yard, we sell our compost by the 0.5 and 1.5 yard scoop, and then I sell dump truck loads by the 15-yard load, and then I sell 45 cubic yards to customers as well. I supply some of the nurseries in Northwest Arkansas, as well as one in Bella Vista that buys more than anyone combined. But it's really nice that we're able to do that as a company, because again, the supply, we just don't have enough for the demand. And people who, like landscape companies, or if you're a local farmer and you need to apply organic matter to your operation, they have this as an option. I will say that being able to sell a product that comes out of a commercial facility is good for the people who have like multiple acres of land that they need to top dress. So I wanted to kind of go over what the differences are between a commercial facility versus a residential. Like if you had a backyard pile of compost, that's what I'll consider a residential composting operation. In a commercial facility, you are going to get large uniform batches. However, the labor and equipment costs millions of dollars. And so for some cities, it's just not feasible. You're almost guaranteed whenever you get your compost from a facility that it's going to be good stuff. I wish I had a photo of, or even a video of what it looks like whenever I get a new truck in. It's always like exciting for me because whenever they unload, it's just, there's so much of it that comes off of a truck. One truck can weigh nearly 80,000 pounds. That's usually what he comes off of the scale at. And it's just really, I love that we get to really deliver that wherever in Northwest Arkansas, as long as the ground is not too wet. So I also have this food waste scale provided by the EPA on this next slide. And we are working on new solutions and are open to implementing new solutions. And so there's this term farm to table. And then we like to use the term table to food loops because whenever we obtain organic waste or really any recycling in general, we'll make sure that it goes to the right place. It ends up in the right hands. I love that City of Fayetteville has their transparency page because, I mean, you should know where things are ending up, especially if you're going as far out of your way to make sure that it's getting recycled. You should know where your food waste, if you're recycling it, where it's going. And same with any kind of recyclables. We also project that 40% of what ends up in our local landfill could properly be disposed of. It's organic. 40% of what ends up in the local landfill is organic waste. And then this next slide is this is a digester that we manufactured under a different LLC, and it is still in existence. It's not currently placed at a facility. It was at one point and was built to handle offal waste. And so this was placed at a poultry facility that had, I mean, you're always going to have dead chickens, but it would handle some of the other byproducts from this industry by first minimizing the moisture content. And then what really happens with these digesters is that they mimic composting facilities, much like how composting facilities mimic the natural degradation process in nature. And so the reason for me even including this is because, yes, this presentation is about mitigating food waste, and we want to be open to however we can make that possible. So in theory, we could place these at compost facilities and it could help aid in that process.
Do you mind if I answer or if I ask a question? Because I had a couple questions that repeated because I think your graph that said farm to table, table to food loops, there's a spot where I think there's probably a learning curve. And I'm thinking from what I've heard from Ozark Compost, how they have to train their stakeholders and their customers what goes in the bucket. You know, the City of Fayetteville similarly has to train their customers. What's been your experience and Food Loop's experience with their customers and clients?
We follow all the same directions that Fayetteville asks their participants to follow. And that's because all of the food waste that we acquire and all of the food waste that gets sent to Fayetteville is through, really, it's like us, and then it gets into Richard's hands, and then it gets taken to Fayetteville. So we operate under those same guidelines. I work with a lot of our hospitality clients. Contamination in recycling is like one of the biggest problems, and it's really just getting everybody on the same page is one of the biggest, I shouldn't say problems, it's just a challenge. So I'll make a lot of times, and even the resources from Fayetteville, I point people to their website, frequently, because if they have questions about what ends up in their red bins, anything that Fayetteville wants for that, because they're like the end goal, they're where all of the food waste ends up. We are able to kind of use just what they recommend, but it is a learning curve for everyone. And it's always a conversation that we have to have whenever we add a new customer. Did that
And
answer your question?
yeah, I think so. And then I guess that was the other thing is like, what is the biggest struggle trying to collect foods? Is it finding the people who are willing to partition it? Is it separating it? Is it just the pickup process itself? Like, what's the biggest struggle
Mm-hmm.
for getting that?
The cost for people that aren't in Fayetteville, I think, especially restaurants, they operate within these really fine, these small margins. So to be able to opt for their food waste to get hauled into Fayetteville, it's $13 a bin, and a 65-gallon bin holds about, I think, 250 pounds of food waste. And Richard will drop those by and pick them up once, if not twice weekly. So I would say that apart from the cost, just because obviously it costs to haul that. I mean, food waste is not light; it's pretty heavy, and it requires a dump truck to move across town. And so another big problem I would say, especially with restaurants, is that if they are going to opt to do food waste recycling, they have to keep their environment extremely sanitary. They're not going to want like accumulated food sitting out on their back deck for longer than a few days. However, even like in my own experience, whenever I started recycling my food waste and I started keeping it enclosed and in a bin, I feel like I never smell my food waste. I feel like there's so many positive reasons why everybody should do it. But I think that ultimately, even though people at first are like, well, I just don't want a bunch of food waste on like right outside my back door and I'm going to have to train my staff. Of course, that's education is a big part of it too.
Well, and I appreciate that because if whoever was in attendance on Monday would have seen my picture of
Yeah.
Fayetteville's drop off full of crawfish shells, and you can smell that if it is sitting outside your
Mm-hmm.
house. So I was thrilled. I took my crawfish, my cooked crawfish shells, and I was able to drop them off at the City of Fayetteville and let the stink go by the compost piles rather than right by my house. So not to
Yeah.
not to tease you there, but yes, like I think you're right. Is if it's not
Yeah.
something particularly pungent, shellfish have a certain ability to generate odor,
My
I will say.
gosh. They sure do. And if you can smell it, that means the neighbor's dog's gonna be able to smell it. That means like wildlife's gonna be able to smell it. And even if you don't smell it, I kind of get in. I have a slide here about our residential program, and I'll kind of talk about why, even if you do have a compost pile, why it's, I
Well,
mean,
yeah, and that's right. Would you mind getting to that last slide? Because I want
yeah,
to make sure I can put up another thing, and
yeah,
then I appreciate it.
yeah. So, um, Fabian did a great job at explaining like the accessibility for people that want to recycle food waste in Fayetteville. There are drop-off locations all throughout. Like I said, I use them. Those are the closest to where I live, so those are actually the ones that I utilize. We have 6 of our own spread throughout Northwest Arkansas. If you don't live, I live in Johnson, but if you don't live near Fayetteville, we have 2 in Bentonville, 2 in Rogers, and 2 in excuse me, Springdale. And we have those in place really just to help, again, with accessibility. Our program does cost, and it's not a door to door program or a doorstep program. You do have to take your red buckets. We'll provide you with one, and you can use any of the 6 locations for $10 a month. But we also will provide you with a 5-gallon liner. And like Matt was saying, if you let's say you did a crawfish boil and you have 20 pounds of just crawfish shells, I don't want that in my house or in my backyard. So a good alternative is to take that to one of our locations and to drop it off with us. And again, it eventually will make its way to the city of Fayetteville. But it's same with like meat and dairy, where if you have that kind of waste, and let's say you do have a composting operation of your own and you don't want to put any of that in there, I recommend you not put it in your backyard compost. Drop it off with us if you don't live close to the City of Fayetteville, we will drop a bucket by. I dropped one off with somebody near Tawnytown 2 days ago, and we want to make that a possibility for anybody and everybody. We do focus on big corporate events, and you may see us with our table and our sorters out at big events, and we do love doing those because we feel like that's what makes the biggest impact. But regardless whether you are just somebody who wants to help with our initiatives, or if you're somebody who has sustainability initiatives of your own, we just want to help everybody get do sustainability with what in any way that they can. So
Yeah, well, I do appreciate it, and I did jump into your time a little bit with the questions. So thank y'all both. First off, this has been very valuable to think about how can we do composting, at scale, at, a societal level, because not everyone's able to do it at their home. I have my little Ziploc bag with my banana peel and my mandarin orange peels, but I don't go out to eat and take a little pouch with me to bring back to my home compost pile, right? So it does take another, scale for that to be captured. So I really do admire and appreciate the work.
I
As
want to
far
just
as,
say one more
oh
thing
yeah,
really
go
quick
ahead.
with that. Another reason to use our drop-off locations or to use Fayetteville's is you're not going to be able to put your BPI certified compostables, if you do get them from a restaurant, those are not going to degrade in your backyard pile. They just don't get hot enough. So that's another thing.
Oh, yeah, the utensils and yeah, that is true. So much appreciated. That's right. That would be something that would just persist for sure. If you screened it, you'd find a fork, I
Yep.
bet. So we've made it through Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as far as our Compost Week activities. Just look at this calendar for the event Thursday, tomorrow evening in Fayetteville. We're going to have a meetup at Fossil Cove. And it's just something that we want to make sure anyone who's interested, anyone who wants to learn more about doing this at home, a little bit more about the programs. If you're one of the leaders in these activities, we'd love to hear from you and visit with you. Just kind of a fun time to celebrate. And then Friday is our big day. We're going to have a field day where we're going to showcase the master composter garden that we have at the Washington County Extension Office. I'm really excited about that because, we talked about some of the shortcomings of home composting piles, but you can really dial it in. And there's some doodads and some technology that works, and there's some doodads and technology that does not work. And so we're going to get, steered straight. If you're trying to get a tumbler, what's the one you should think about and what's the one you should pass on, for example. And then we also have simulated piles that would be similar to what the windrows that you see at the City of Fayetteville. They're not, we don't have 200-foot long piles. We've probably got like a 30-foot long pile, but something that you're probably not putting in your backyard. So we have some piles, we have some educational content there. We would love to see you at the event. If you are interested in attending, we're asking you to please register so we can anticipate the head count. I'm going to peek just one last time if we have any more questions. I don't see any now. So with that, I'm just going to thank Haley very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Fabian.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you
Thank you
guys
so
for
much.
being here. Thank you,
Happy
Fabian. Thank you,
Wednesday.
Matt.
I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsoring agencies who support this work and have helped us to organize these sorts of events. So a thank you to the Walton Family Foundation, to the USDA AMS Regional Food System Partnerships Program, to the USDA NRCS Conservation Innovation Grants Program, and to the USDA NEFA Hatch Funding Program that supports the land grant mission. So we thank our sponsors for making this all possible, and we appreciate your attendance.